I saw your story this morning about like being like having zero energy. Were you getting a lot of people message you with like advice and stuff? What are people saying?
Yeah, so I had like a few of my sort of close friends that I have on social media message me that train and stuff, and they were sort of like, you've got to be honest with yourself. Do you need to push through today, or do you need to kind of step back and just have a more slow day? And then a close friend of mine, someone I work with, Dean Kirk, nutrition, he messaged and said, like, make sure you fuel up today then if you're feeling like that. You know, what have you been eating over the weekend and stuff like that. So yeah, and a lot of people said about meditating or just going for a walk if you're not feeling up for a lot. But I did end up pushing through a smaller strength session, but I'm glad I got some strength work in. And then I'm going to head off to training in a little while as well. So it was one of those days that I know I was a bit gentle with myself yesterday. And today was more of a day of I'm sort of being a little bit on the lazy side and need to push through. So
Yeah. Do you never have days like that where you just feel like taking the day off instead, and
yeah, I mean a
you
lot.
always sort of try and push through it?
Especially when, you know, lack of sleep with the baby and stuff, it's easy to think, oh, you didn't sleep very well last night, you know, maybe you should, you know, have a couple of days off and not train. And but you know, if I treat myself that gently, a lot of the time I'm never really going to get anywhere close to my goals. But then you come to that question of, are you close to burning out? So it's a really fine line, isn't it? But that looks different for everyone, so I suppose it's just getting used to what works for you.
Yeah, I think it's also like getting to know yourself as well, and knowing when you are just feeling a bit like, oh, I can't be bothered today, and when you actually are like getting burnt out and stuff.
Yeah, it just takes a lot of effort to be that honest with yourself, doesn't it? But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know, growth comes out of discomfort, but so does burning out. So
Yeah, yeah. I seen something interests me a lot is, I think you said in one of your YouTube videos before about how anxious you get before all of your fights.
oh god, yeah, I'm a mess.
How do you sort of like, how do you deal with that so it's not like a crippling anxiety, and sort of like you're just sort of frozen up in the
Well,
oxygen?
do you know what? I don't have a lot of tools to cope with it at all. And these are one of the reasons that I started seeing a therapist to try and unpack where all that comes from. Um, I think I am just lucky in a sense that once, you know, you're shut in the cage and the ref says fight, I just my body takes over and my mind seems to be able to be quiet. It's definitely hindered some of my performances, I think, in terms of being switch on in there. One case it was really bad was before I fought Daniel Hutton, and that was one of the fights I lost, but one of my best performances in the end. And my coaches nearly didn't let me walk out to the fight. Like, my warm up was awful. I wasn't switched on at all. I don't even know where I was. But that is kind of an example that it was quite crippling. But I did end up being woken up quite bluntly in the first round because she hits quite hard. So again, it just kind of snaps you in the zone, and it's that, you know, survival mode, isn't it? You either fight or you're going to get knocked out, so you just have to do what you can. One thing I find that I naturally picked up, which is quite a good coping mechanism, is I sort of spend time really visualizing, inhaling really positive things. So I sort of close my eyes and deep breaths, and I visualize inhaling the reassuring comments I've had from coaches, all of looking back over the camp, all of the hard work I've put in, the things I've overcome in life, my strengths, my good traits, all of that sort of thing. And visualize it in a really light color, and then visualize exhaling all the doubts, the negative thoughts, and any dark colors. I don't know where that come from, but that just can settle me for a minute or two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
and
said
then it
about
comes.
meditation earlier, didn't you? Is that something you've tried before? Well, yeah, that sounds like some sort of meditation.
Yeah, like, I've always said, oh, I'm rubbish at meditating, but that's, you know, a really important form of it. That's sort of a tool that a lot of people use. So I've tried to make more effort to meditate and just give myself 10 minutes a day in whatever that looks, whether it's just going for a walk, but being really, really present in my surroundings, or,
Mm.
you know, guided meditation or something like I just explained. But yeah, and then I get to the point where you have to walk out and it just feels like I've got no choice and it's too far to go back. So I just end up getting in there and fighting, I suppose. Instead of a choice that way.
Oh, well,
I have to stop myself running away the whole day
yeah.
of fighting. And you know, I make a joke out of it, but I literally sit there like, if I was to fall down the stairs and break my leg, you know, I couldn't fight. So maybe I should go for a walk and find some stairs to throw myself down. Like, it gets that bad.
Yeah.
but maybe that's the reason for some of my lackluster performances, and maybe that's the reason for some of my better performances.
Yeah. Well, you hear about like some people where it either like makes them do better, or you know, they either like use their anxiety, or they like makes them do worse because they're so worried.
Well, I mean, if you look at sports psychology just as a general subject, or any psychology, too little anxiety will lead to no performance, and too much
Yeah.
anxiety will lead to a hindered performance. So I think everyone's spectrum is slightly different. I don't need gearing up on fight day. I need sort of leveling off. So, you know, I've got a teammate that needs gearing up, and you have to kind of kick his bum in gear. And then, you know, some that you really have to pull back because they're too excited, and everyone's different. It's just gaining the experience to know what works for you, I suppose.
Yeah. I think like meditation as well, it's not always just sort of sitting there with your legs crossed, making like you're trying to make your mind blank. It's
No, I'm not good at that
yeah.
person at all.
It's just sort of like being present in the moment, I think, as well.
Yeah, definitely. And visualizing your fights and what you want to do or achieve and that sort of thing. There's loads of forms of meditation.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Was that some sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Was there any sort of like, what would you say like the biggest highlight of your career has been so far? Because obviously you won the obviously won the belt, didn't you? And then defended it. It was, yeah, that was the first defense, wasn't it? I know.
Yeah.
Was the announcer got it wrong or something? Said it.
Yeah. He said I knew, and I was like, bro, I've been
Yeah,
here
yeah.
for it's fine.
But was that the highlight of your career then, winning the belt for the first time, or?
No, that was probably my worst. Well, not my worst fight. It was just such a mismatch. It was a stoppage in like 46 seconds, I think, and I trained so hard through that camp, and the amount of sparring rounds and stuff like that. And the week before, I wasn't supposed to fight like 2 weeks out because my opponent pulled out, and they for a whole week they didn't have a replacement. So I ended up moving all my gear up because I started in uni thinking, right, the fight isn't on, so I'll move to uni now. And then I was literally unpacking my shit at uni, got a call, you're back on. I was like, eat a burger, drop the burger, run home, you know. So it was a very emotional sort of camp. And then the fight was really mismatched, and it's really easy to look really good against someone that's not as skilled as you. So
Was that her first? It was her first amateur fight, wasn't it? Is that correct?
What, my opponent?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it was her third or fourth.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I'm thinking of something else then. Sorry. Yeah.
So yeah, it was just a bit of a mismatch. One of the girls I fought on Cage Warriors Academy, it was her. Was it her first MMA fight? I think so. There's something, I don't know. I can't remember. They all roll into one in my head.
Yeah.
But no, the highlight.
Sorry. Yeah, I
so
must
far,
be thinking of something else there. Like one
the
of the other ones.
highlight. My fight so far would probably been the Daniel Hutton fight. It was sort of, I ended up really showing what we'd worked on in the camp and performed quite well, and sort of overcome that lack of switching on and that warm up, like I said. So probably that so far, but I enjoy kind of the process of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you dropped out of university, didn't you?
Yeah, I was literally only there 3 months. I basically had like a long break.
Yeah. I've spoken to other fighters as well that have also like dropped out of university to pursue their like fighting career and stuff. Do you have sort of any other advice to other fighters of sort of balancing their life with balancing their sort of fighting career with other aspects of their life, such as education and things like that?
I think it's just being honest with yourself. Like, it was really easy to kind of pretend that's what I wanted and that I was happy there, and that's the conventional life, isn't it? These days you go to uni and stuff. But the training wasn't what I thought it would be. I was at Loughborough, which is the best sport union in the world, but MMA is not a mainstream sport, so it's just not the support and funding. I was training with Jimmy Warhead up there, who I really clicked with, but it was a lack of.
What was it you were studying there? Sorry.
Sports science, and
Yeah.
I got there and I didn't really enjoy the degree. That I didn't click with it. I couldn't get into it. I just won that belt, and all I kept thinking was about fighting. And I'd gone from training, like 20 hours a week to 6 hours on a good week if all the training sessions were on, and I didn't have any support with my strength work, or I was sort of technically one of the best ones in the class at the uni training, and Jimmy Warhead said to go to his club and gel with his team and stuff, and it just wasn't right. I just knew it wasn't right, so I wasn't going to waste my time. So I come home and I was happy with my team at home. and then I sort of prioritized training in my day-to-day life and made it like a full-time thing, and work fitted around training, and just kind of shifted the balance in life. But I think you've got to be honest with what you want and then confident enough to go for it. I could go back to unit 30 and get a degree if I really wanted to. But what I wanted in that moment was to train and pursue a career in MMA and see how far I can get with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, always have to balance loads in life if you're one of those high achieving people. For me right now, that's training and a baby. For some people, it's, a full-time nursing career and fighting, or, whatever it is. It's just, you have to find the right balance for you and be honest with yourself.
Yeah. You encourage other female fighters online about obviously being a mother and fighting at the same time. Do you have any sort of advice for balancing those two aspects of your life as well?
Caffeine. It's a really different role, isn't it? It's not a very common thing to be pursuing fighting whilst you're a mother. And it's breaking those stereotypes and a typical role of a woman in today's society. Although we've come a long way, it's still a really niche role in society.
I know it's something you're very vocal about online and stuff.
Very, very vocal. Someone's got to be, I wish I had someone to look up to and in close proximity that was really honest about their journey. So I thought I'd do that for other women. Again, it's just being honest with what you want. If a family isn't right for your time in life and that's not something you want to try and create, then don't do it. Do it when it's right for you. It's a lot easier to fall pregnant than people realize. And if it's something that you're in that situation and you want to have a baby and you still want a career, it's just knowing that you can do that. It's about the confidence, I think. Why, before I had a baby, I believed that I could be professional in MMA and do quite well at it. Why then would I have a baby and completely doubt myself? It just doesn't make sense. Yes, the dynamic of my life changed, but it's still possible. Like, I don't know, they thought going to the moon was impossible until it happened, like someone in the world's going to do it eventually, so it might as well be you. And it's just raising awareness about it, because there's really no support. That sponsors drop you, the financial support isn't great, the care after having a baby from the NHS isn't fantastic, let alone being an athlete and trying to get back to elite performance. So yeah, I think if that's something that you want, then you should be confident enough to do it and reach out for anyone who's there to support you. But
is that something you've experienced of like losing sponsors and stuff like that then?
Yeah, I mean, I've not really got any major sponsors, and I haven't done before, but even, the little small companies that I like to support and supported me back, I kind of didn't hear a lot from, because I wasn't training for a fight. And so I suppose in their eyes, the exposure wasn't as great. And there was no reassurance that they were going to be there for me when I was back or throughout. But there's been a lot of controversial topics and media over, Nike not supporting their athletes when they've had babies and stuff like that. And that's a company that can really afford to support their athletes regardless of their situation. And I used to use the comparison of you'd be supported if you were injured and not competing. But pregnancy isn't even an injury. It's a phase of life. And what else do you expect women to do? Sponsors don't stop supporting men when their partners have, or male fighters when their partners have babies. And I'm sure they take time out of training. And it changes a man's life, but not the way in it changes a woman's. And so the support should be there. The UFC could afford to support their female athletes until they are ready to return to fighting a year or two after having their children, or support childcare while they're training, that sort of thing, not to, allow women to be back fighting 4 months after having a baby. So I think the dynamic and the perspective needs to shift a little bit. Probably not everyone agrees, but that's my perspective and from my experience. So I'm just trying to voice that, I suppose.
Do you think it's just sort of seen as you can either do one or the other, then be a fighter or be a mother?
Yeah, I don't think they need to be mutually exclusive things. They I don't know, you're not just a podcast host, are you? There's plenty of versions of you, and they will intermix in your life. And I think it's about time we stop condemning females to the role of just being a mother once they become a mother. We celebrate a selfless mum, a mum that lives for their children, would do anything for their children. But, what's that teaching the children growing up? That, it's okay to lose yourself in that role, but you don't have to. It's a modern day world. You can, There can be so many versions of yourself.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. You mentioned going to therapy earlier. When did that start, and what was your sort of decision behind that?
So that started, when did it start? About October time, I think.
What,
I was
quite
really
recently
struggling,
then?
yeah, quite recently, although it's a heavy thing to do. Like mentally, it's a lot of work. So it feels like I've been going forever. But I know I suffered from these fight day nerves. I'm a perfectionist, a control freak in some situations. I like schedule, I like structure. Like I've got an athlete brain. That's what a lot of athletes have. That sort of mindset. And I wanted to unpack where those nerves come from. And most things like that come from your childhood. So I know a therapist would help me with that. And then I was wanted to see if moving to a more specific sports psychologist would help. But at the moment, this is fine for me. And I was struggling with this transition period, going from being really like physically and mentally soft, nurturing, comforting, that typical role of a mother, to wanting to train more, and that you push past pain, there's no weakness, that fighter sort of mentality. They're sort of opposite ends of the spectrum. And I couldn't quite find a way to bridge the gap between the two in a way that I can flip between the two quite quickly. I obviously, when I come home, need to be that model, that role for my
Was that you
baby.
starting training then after,
I
come
just,
back to training after pregnancy?
I was just picking up training. I mean, I was back to training of some sort quite quickly, but in terms of training with other people and trying to maybe think of fighting, and it turned out that was way too soon for me to think of fighting, and I've sort of taken the pressure off myself. I was struggling to flip back and forth between the roles in a way that's best for me and my family. And I think I've learned that I don't need to flip back and forth between the roles. I can just intermix them. So things like, being at the gym and wanting to be treated like one of the boys, and I run the same amount, or, I spar as hard, and that sort of thing. Well, I haven't got to separate them. I am a woman. My needs are different. My mentality is different. I require more emotional support training than some of the boys do. And I no longer see that as a weakness. It's just something that needs to be respected. And so I can still be a really good fighter and a really good mother, as long as I have that support network around me that will support that. So yeah, that's something that therapy has really helped me figure out. And I'm good at not being such a perfectionist, because your day doesn't go perfectly when you have a child.
You said you said about being like one of the boys you said before. Is that something you've sort of found yourself trying to do before when you first started training?
Oh God, yeah. Like if the boys have got to do 100 press ups, I'm doing them. Like don't tell me to do 90. Like constantly having something to prove. And as a female in a male dominated sport, is something that's just, I don't know, if you're going to fight, like I think you tend to have that attitude that you have to be like one of the boys, you have to do what the boys are doing. And you kind of switch your emotions off like they do in that sense. Yeah, just that sort of thing. I'm just hyper competitive and hyper ambitious. So it felt like being a woman was a weakness because you're treated differently to the boys. Therefore, I wanted to be treated just the same as the boys. I found having a baby a really empowering experience and a really instinctual experience. And so I realized that's not a weakness at all. And that's a strength. Like, you got no idea what goes on. Like, I've overcome so much becoming a mum and still wanting to fight. So like, I don't need to express that. I know that. And so it just feels more of a strength and an empowering thing rather than a weakness.
Yeah, yeah. You're obviously like quite vocal online. I said before with like your blog now and your YouTube channel and stuff. Was that something that just started with lockdown, or was that something that like started before lockdown and all, before all
So the
COVID kicked off and stuff?
blog, yeah, and we all had more time.
Yeah,
No, the blog I've been running for like a few years now, I think, and I've always enjoyed writing and being quite vocal, and I'm quite bold with my opinions and experiences. So I wanted to find a way to channel that. And I'd also speak to other people, and they'd feel the same as me. And I thought, thought I was the only one, like feeling a bit down after a fight, whether you win or lose, because all that pressure is led up to that day and then that's taken away. Or, imposter syndrome, it comes to fight day, and you think, oh my God, what am I doing? That sort of thing. And it turns out loads of people feel that way. So again, I just wish I had an article like that to read so that I didn't feel alone. So I thought, well, I'm going to write it. Like, so that's where the blog posts come from. And then, yeah, I had loads of spare time and we were in lockdown. So I started the YouTube channel and just kind of wanted to cover similar topics. And yeah, just more of a lifestyle thing, I suppose. Like I said, I have quite a niche lifestyle. But I remember I used to love watching like day in the life videos of fighters, and like when the embedded episodes would come out and Ronda Rousey first become a massive star, I'd love watching those. So
Yeah.
maybe I can do my own sort of version of that and share with the world what life could look like, and because it's a bit different to the norm.
Do you do some vlogs then of you training when you get back into fight camps and stuff again?
I'm try and be consistent because I'm rubbish at consistency with those.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, that'd be good.
My first fight back, and kind of keeping everyone updated, and probably weekly vlogs through the camp, and seeing how I'm involving, you know, the baby in that lifestyle and balancing life. And yeah, I'm hoping.
I feel like daily vlogs are pretty intense, but weekly ones might be a bit.
I don't have the time for it. Weekly, maybe I could manage.
Yeah, I feel like the daily ones are like, now I'm making my breakfast, now I'm drinking my coffee. Just like,
I don't want to live with you. I just want to kind of know a little bit about your life.
Yeah.